This is the vocal track that was sent to me.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me. Away.
And this is what it sounds like in the final mix.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me. Away.
So I'm going to show you everything I did to get there. And before I get started, I just want to let you know I have a mixing cheat sheet that you can download for free. And a lot of the EQ frequencies and compression settings I'm going to walk you through in this video, they're already written down on that sheet for you, so you can have it for quick reference. And not only vocals, but all the other tracks in your mix as well. So that's for free download at mixcheatsheet.com, or the link is below. So as you could hear, the raw vocal, let me just disable all these effects and plugins. It's not so much the tone that's rough, it's dynamically, it's very up and down, right? If you listen again.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me. Away.
Very in and out here, which does change the tone. It almost sounds like he's kind of way up close on the mic, so you get that kind of woofy proximity effect, and then when he hits those higher notes, he's like pulling away, or he's maybe even like turning away, because it's quite a drastic change there.
We're taken away from me. Away.
So, I mean, right off the bat, quick tip is if you're a vocalist or you're recording a vocalist and you see them kind of pulling way away from the mic and you hear that difference very pronounced like that, you're going to want to coach them to stay a little more centered on the mic. But how are we going to deal with this, right? Well, right away when I get sent these tracks, I can tell it was not compressed on the way in. And now if I was recording the vocals, I would compress them on the way in with a distressor. A lot of people don't have a good outboard compressor though, so they don't record vocals with compression, which is fine. So in that case, what I do is I start with just trying to get them to where I would have had it if I had recorded it, right? Which means going through a distressor. Now I got rid of my hardware distressor a bunch of years ago, and now I just use this plugin version. This is the one in the Slate Virtual Mix Rack. Now I think this one sounds close enough to a real distressor that I'm happy using it. I haven't really tried the other options out there, but there are a bunch, so check them out. But these are the same settings that I would use on the hardware unit. So I use a 6:1 ratio, attack around 4, release around 3. So let's listen to this. And again, this is bypassed.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me.
And in.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me. Away.
Okay, so that's a lot better already. It's a lot closer to where it needs to be. It's still, the change is quite drastic still in that section, but we'll keep going. Now, the next plugin here is low control. And this is not something I often do on vocals. This is only when there's too much low-end buildup that's dynamic in a vocal. And it's exactly for this type of scenario where there's sections of the song where the singer is right up on the mic, and so you get that extra low end, but then they pull away and you don't have the low end anymore. So what would happen if you just EQ'd the low end out is when they're up like this, it's going to sound good. But when they pull away, your vocal's going to sound very thin because you've taken out all of that low end. So the solution is a dynamic EQ or a multi-band compressor that's only going to dip down that low end when it's too much, when you need to. So I love using this low control plugin for that purpose. And I thought this vocal definitely had a lot too much low end. So let's check out what this is doing now.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me. Away.
So you can really see the difference there, right? And this is compressing all the frequencies below 250 hertz. And not only am I compressing them, I'm also reducing them too by 2 dB as well. But check this out. Like when he gets to the high note here, there's no gain reduction on the low end because he's pulled away. We don't have those low frequencies. So that's really shows what I'm trying to say here.
Away. I still can't believe that you're not here.
So that's smoothing out the vocal even more. So we're already, just with these two plugins, like check this out. This is without them.
I still can't believe that you're not here.
And with.
I still can't believe that you're not here.
And that actually smoothed out the perceived level difference between, where he's pulling away and then when he's close. because it really is the low end that's changing the most. So if we just smooth that low end part out, we get a much more even vocal. So now we're in a place where this is where I would like the vocal to be before I start really mixing it, right? Like if I had recorded this myself, I would want it to sound like this.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me. Away.
Okay, much closer to a solid source track there. Now from there, it's really as simple as just going through the regular chain that I've shown other times on this channel, but I'll walk you through it again. So this is my EQ, and I do some compression on this as well. It's the SSL channel from Waves. So let's go through it. We're doing a big top end boost over 9 dB at 8K, and then also around 4.5K, we're doing another 6 dB. Mid-range boost around 2K. And then this one is another move that I don't always make, and this is taking out some low end, some additional low end from 100 hertz. Now this is a shelf and it's pretty gentle. It extends, above the 100 hertz where I have it set. So it's kind of just a gentle roll off on those low frequencies. So let's check that out.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me. It's been so long since you were taken away from me. Away.
Wow. So quite a difference, right? It almost sounds wrong when you hear it compared to the raw vocal, because the raw vocal was so dark and woofy. Now it's very bright.
It's been so long.
And by the way, we're doing 5-to-1 ratio, fast attack, fast release on the compressor here after the EQ.
It's been so long since you...
So in solo, it's sounding a little thin and harsh, right? But let's check it out in context of the mix. Let me mute the background vocals, and I'll have to turn it up for you as well. Yeah, so in the context of the mix, like let's take off the EQ again. It's way too dark, right? And that's why you can't do your mixing in solo, because in solo, when I put this EQ on, the vocal sounds crazy.
It's been so long.
Right? But in context of the mix, it needed that extra top end boost. And it's really not that the vocal has been made so overly bright and harsh or anything like that. It's just that in context, right? Like in comparison to what it was before, our ears get used to that. And so we use that as the benchmark, but that's not the benchmark you should be using. The benchmark you should be using is like what a pro final competitive comparable mix sounds like, right? So that's the EQ. It needed quite a big dose there. Now, here's my compressor, CLA 76 as always, but there is a little bit of a twist here. So longtime viewers of this channel, I'm interested if you spotted what was different here than what I normally do. And if I go to setup A here, this is kind of what I was flipping back and forth between during the mix process, trying to decide what to do. So the difference is in the ratio. So this is what it sounded like with a 4-to-1 ratio. But I just felt it wasn't giving me that like urgency and that extra energy and aggression that I wanted from this vocal. So I tried the all buttons in mode, which this is not what I normally do. 4-to-1 is usually what I end up with on like 90% of tracks that I work with. But on this one, I just wanted a little more. So I tried the all buttons in. I just thought it sounded better, more aggressive, more upfront, and more even dynamically. I'll show you the 4-to-1 again. I could just hear everything, every word, every little syllable, every little noise from his voice. I could hear everything way more clearly with the all buttons in mode. So I ended up liking that a lot better. So where are we at now? Let's check the second half of this course. So we have the brightness, we have the aggression and energy from the compressor. What we need to do now is smooth it over a bit and fill it out in the mid-range. That's basically what I'm thinking here. So for the purpose of smoothing it over, we need to de-ess, right? We've got a lot of compression, a lot of high end added. So here is the de-esser plugin from BSA. So this is just taking off the harshness of the S's. And I like to do this after the EQ and after the compression because I want to get the tone of the vocal overall sounding the way I want it to sound. And then whatever's too much, which usually there is too much when I've done all this EQ and compression, there's too much harshness in the sibilants, then I'll tame that down after because then I end up with what I want, right? I don't want to de-ess into all that stuff because then I'm taking it down, but then I'm putting it back up and it's just this kind of like convoluted cycle of what you're doing, right? So I prefer to do the de-essing after everything there. So that's a pretty simple concept. After that, saturation, and I'm using the Cranesong Phoenix 2 plugin here, and I heard that this plugin is in testing for different DAWs, like VST, I think. So those of you who have seen this plugin be used for many, many years, but couldn't use it because you're not using Pro Tools, I think there's a solution coming soon, which is awesome. But I'm using the luster mode here. So these are just kind of different tones, different frequency curves on the saturation. And I'm being fairly heavy-handed with this one. So check it out. I'll solo it out for you.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me, away.
So what this is doing is it's almost a bit of a tape saturation style that's happening where that kind of grainy, almost digitally sounding top end with all of that EQ that we've done, all the processing we've done, it's kind of smoothing that over and soaking that up, but it's also enhancing and just fattening up the lower end of the mid-range in the vocal too.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me, away. I still can't believe that you're not here.
And the nice thing about doing this towards the end of the chain is because, I've kind of fixed the problems. I've smoothed it out. I've been pretty aggressive with the moves. And now that I have a very kind of even, upfront, consistent vocal and consistent tone on the vocal, now I can use a saturation that's going to respond to that kind of steady, consistent sound and just add in what I think is missing, right? So that's a pretty important plugin in this chain. And then finally, I've got the L1, which is almost always at the end of my vocal chain, just shaving off a little bit.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me, away from me.
Like on the away from me, the M is kind of harsh. It kind of jumps out a lot, and this just smooths it out. I'll play it without.
Away from me, away from me, away.
It's subtle, but it just tames those subtle peaks that kind of spike out of the mix when you do that kind of heavy compression, especially with the all buttons in mode. So let's turn my volume automation back on, which is not crazy, but I just ride the fader throughout, making sure I can hear everything.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me, away. I still can't believe that you're not here.
It's a pretty drastic difference, right? But it's, even though we've got the tone and the energy right, I can hear all the words, it's still sounding a little small and naked, right? So that's where the effects come in. So here's my stereo delay. So this is something I've shown before, but it's a simple one repeat delay. So there's no feedback. It just slaps back once, and it's 180 milliseconds on the left and 220 on the right. So it helps to spread it out. And this is what I use instead of reverb.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me, away. I still can't believe that you're.
Okay, here it is without.
It's been so long since you were.
And with.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me, away.
In the context of the mix, you don't necessarily hear those echoes, but it just helps sit it in, and it just feels like it belongs, and the mix kind of wraps around it a little more. Now, next up, again, this is something that I don't always do on a vocal, but this is a vocal doubler send, and this is sending to this Soundtoys little micro shift plugin, which is just a harmonizer, right? It's kind of adjusting the pitch and the timing a bit on the left and right, so it's spreading it out stereo and giving it a little more fullness.
It's been so long since you were taken away.
Now I'm going to mute the delay just so you can hear what this is doing.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me. Away. I still can't believe that you're not here.
Okay, with both.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me. Away. I still can't believe that you're not.
Okay, so now the vocal is taking up some more space for us. Now after that, we've got another delay send. Now this is going to my mono vocal delay, and this is the H delay plugin, which I really love for this purpose. Just a simple quarter note delay with some feedback, and then I'm high passing and low passing the return a little bit as well, just to give it a slight telephone effect.
It's been so long since.
Again, I'll mute the other effects so you can hear just this delay.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me. Away. I still can't.
So again, it's not super loud, it's somewhat subtle in the mix, but this just helps to add some, to me it feels like it's adding some front to back depth in the vocal.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me. Away.
That's also something that I could automate up and down at different points in the mix if I wanted something to trail off a little more obviously. And then lastly, I've got another delay, and this one's going to a similar kind of style, but it's a stereo one. So it's a quarter note again, it's filtered out on the high end a little bit, and we've got a little bit of feedback as well, so it's repeating. But right down here at the bottom, there's a groove control. So this is making the left side 2% slower on the repeats, and the right side 2% faster on the repeats than just a standard quarter note. And what that does is, instead of just having it be the delay up the middle, it sounds like the delay is out the sides, right? So this is just helping me spread out the ambience of the vocal.
It's been so long since you were taken away.
And again, I'll mute here so you can just hear what that one's doing.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me. Away.
Okay, so let me mute all of the vocal effects here, and then I'll turn them back on in context of the mix.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me. Away.
And with them.
It's been so long since you were taken away from me. Away. I still can't believe that you're not here.
So there you go. That's what I did to get a vocal that came in kind of rough shape. You know, it's definitely not super bad or anything, but just dynamically and just the singer being away from the mic and stuff, it needed a big helping hand. But at the end of the day, it worked out fine. The mix turned out great. I'm really happy with it. And it's pretty awesome that we have tools that can make that kind of transformation to a sound. So if you like this song, the band is called Dark Harbor. They're from Washington State, and they just released this song a few weeks ago. It's called Sundance. You can check it out on Spotify. The link is below. And I also helped to kind of pre-produce and rearrange this song a little bit, and I did a video about that a while ago. And if you want to see behind the scenes on the actual pre-production and writing and arranging of this song, go ahead and check out that video here.